गरी देखाउनु छ नो टेन्सन महिनावारीमा व्हाइट मुन छ सासु हुन्या आमा बुहारी या छोरी मन पराउँछन् व्हाइट मुन आजका नारी हो ओ व्हाइट मुन स्यानिटरी प्याड हो ओ हामीले खोजेको एक्ज्याक्ट नेपालमा बनेको नेपालीहरूको लागि व्हाइट मुन स्यानिटरी प्याड सुरक्षित महिनावारी हाम्रो जिम्मेवारी ग्राहक वर्गमा खुसीको खबर
कञ्चन प्रिन्टर्समा पोखरामै पहिलो पटक युभी डिटिएफ प्रिन्ट मार्फत जुनसुकै सामानमा सिधै प्रिन्ट गर्न सकिने
साथै रोल टु रोल प्रिन्टको सुविधा
आफ्नै कस्टम डिजाइनमा फोटो एल्बम तयार गर्न सकिने
क्लियर प्रिन्ट व्हाइट प्रिन्ट गोल्डन प्रिन्ट सिल्भर प्रिन्टको सुविधा अब कञ्चन प्रिन्टर्स पोखरामा
सम्पर्क कञ्चन प्रिन्टर्स न्यू रोड पोखरा फोन नम्बर 061757078 इमेल कञ्चन computersewa@gmail.com
Namaste and very warm welcome to the yet another episode of Pokhara, Pure as Paradise. We are here to promote Pokhara and periphery through some initiatives, through some talks, through some information regarding Pokhara and its tourism. Today, we have the privilege of welcoming a very special guest in our show. Firstly, let me welcome all the dear listeners and thank the technician Sudeep, who is here to make a bridge between me, my guest, and you all listeners. Yes, let me introduce the guest for today's episode, the Pokhara Pure as Paradise. He is Gerard Artson. He is from Amsterdam, Holland, who came back to Nepal in 1977, some 48 years before. He has been recently retired as a teacher's trainer, and he has a lot to share on the then Pokhara and now Pokhara. So without any further delay, let me welcome our guest in Radio Barai 99.2 megahertz. Gerard, namaste.
Namaste, Dipendra. Thank you very much for inviting me on your show.
It's our pleasure, sir. So how you have been?
I am very well. I'm in Pokhara, so how could I not be well?
Okay. Can you take us back to 40 years before? Like, how did you came to know about Nepal in Amsterdam?
Yes, I had just graduated from high school, and I had no idea what I wanted. I was supposed to go to university. My father was expecting to go to university, and I had no idea what I wanted to study.
Okay.
And in those days, and in my country, that wasn't really a problem. And I was planning to seclude myself on an island somewhere in the North Sea for half a year to think about what I wanted with my future. Until I ran into two friends of mine in a local youth club. And they told me they were going to travel to India in October 1977. And I thought, well, India, that's a place where I want to visit someday, but I don't think I'll be.
You knew about India before.
Yes.
Okay. What was your age at the time?
I was 19.
Okay, 19. Okay.
And as we were traveling, I was traveling with two friends, and they were brothers from my village.
Okay. In Amsterdam.
Not far from Amsterdam.
Okay, not far.
And
Okay.
one of them had the inspiration of seeing Kathmandu from the Tintin comic.
Okay, comic book. Yeah. I
Tintin
still
in
remember.
Tibet.
We used to
Tintin
have
in Tibet.
such comics in the bookstores of
Yes.
Lakeside and Tamil
Yeah,
at that time. Yeah.
And I had never heard of. Well, I'd heard of Nepal, but Kathmandu, I'm not sure if I had an active
Okay.
knowledge of the city. But I thought, yeah, sure, I'll tag along. From India to Nepal, it's not
So
very
you
far.
three brothers came up to India,
Yes.
to Pakistan.
Yes, we traveled overland because that was the route in those days. Flying was far too expensive for young people like us.
Okay.
We had all worked and saved money, and
So bus drive it also.
bus.
basically.
Yeah, we hitchhiked to Istanbul, and then we took buses from Istanbul to Tehran,
Tehran.
from Tehran to Kabul, from Kabul to Lahore, and from Lahore we crossed the border, and from there we took the trains through India.
India. Okay.
And,
So it seems like something like a hippie trail, yeah.
that was later called the hippie trail. Yes,
Hippie trail,
and it was a trail because it was very busy. Actually, there were
Okay.
many young Westerners like us traveling either from Europe to India or back.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So can you recall some of the activities you saw what like hippies were into, and then up to India, or I mean, you traveled through the bus, and probably you must have found some hippies there.
Well, yes. See, the young travelers who traveled that way, budget travelers, and nowadays we would call them backpackers. Many
Backpackers.
in those days, or now, many in those days were called hippies, but they didn't call themselves hippies. Even though they changed into Afghani clothes in Kabul or
Okay.
into Indian clothes in India. But many people we traveled on local buses. Many people traveled on the famous VW vans.
Oh yeah.
Or
Those are not the hippies. Those are fancy type
they
of-
were called hippies,
Okay.
but the hippie era
Maybe.
really ended around 1970.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was traveling. Me and my friends were traveling in 1977, and I actually felt it was such a busy route with so many young travelers. I thought this is not as special as I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
But now I know that it was quite special, even though hundreds of thousands of young people traveled from Europe to India and Nepal between 1965 and 1980. Because in 1980, the trouble started in Iran and Afghanistan, and
Okay.
the route was you could no longer travel the route overland, and flights had become a lot cheaper.
Cheaper also.
So people began flying to India, or mainly India, and then from there travel to Nepal.
Okay. How long you three of you stayed in India?
One of my friends travelers checks. There were no
Okay.
ATMs at the time,
Okay.
of course, and to prevent your money from being stolen or losing your money, we took travelers check. You bought travelers checks in Amsterdam, and in case they were stolen, you could ask for replacements.
Yeah.
My friend's traveler checks were stolen in Pakistan, and we found out after we crossed the border in India,
Okay.
and we had to wait for his replacement checks to come in.
Okay.
They never came, but it meant that we spent about a month traveling
Okay.
around Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, Mathura.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And then when his traveler checks still weren't replaced, we decided, his brother and me decided to travel ahead to Nepal, to
Nepal.
Kathmandu.
Okay. In Kathmandu.
And he was waiting to get some money from his parents so he
Okay,
could follow
so
us.
yeah. So it was in 1977 December when
Yes.
you came to Kathmandu.
Yes, yes.
Christmas time.
Yeah, I still remember the date, 23 December
Okay.
1977.
Kathmandu used to celebrate Christmas at that time, or the foreigners?
It was so weird because you come in this beautiful mystical city full of pagodas, a
Okay.
completely different feel and vibe, as we would say now, and the guest houses, or rather the restaurants and the pie shops. The pie shops were, where many people hung
very
out.
nice. Yeah.
Would have little signs, handwritten signs, "Merry Christmas" on the walls. And I thought,
Wow.
Merry Christmas! We're in a Hindu country.
Yeah,
what do you mean, Merry Christmas? I came from Europe to not. Well, I wasn't against
Many
Christmas.
hotels there in Kathmandu.
In Jochen told
The Freak Street.
Freak Street.